Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure and an honor to be here. Can you support yourself financially? Strange question, don't you think? I guess everybody here can. But in Switzerland, as we just heard, 56% of women actually don't have enough money to provide for themselves. And this is precisely what keeps women down. That's why I want to talk about money and financial dependence today. This story begins with my mother. I see my mother sitting at the table as if it were yesterday. She is slightly bent over. She looks so small and sad. In front of her are piles of grey letters filled with rejections. My mother, a mountain farmer's daughter, was not allowed to learn a profession back then. She didn't even have the right to vote. Nevertheless, she did it secretly. While her parents thought she was serving coffee as a kind of unskilled office maid, she was cramming for an apprenticeship. She quickly became successful, even with large companies. With her earnings, she financed my father's studies so he could work and she could stay at home with us. What happened then? She missed out on technological progress, the advent of computers, so I watched my mother applying for worse jobs, letter after letter, until she finally landed in a miserably paid sales job, getting up in the middle of the night and working impossible hours. I saw this and I knew she could have been anything, a pharmaceutical boss, a programmer or a professor. But she remained one thing above all, far below her potential, like so many women. That tore me up inside. So many women, and mothers especially, still stay below their potential and out of the workforce, with dramatic consequences for the economy, GDP, and growth for all of us. For me, what happened to my mother has remained somewhat traumatic. This fear of relegation probably drives me to this day to work a lot for pay, and it was one of the reasons why I was back in business immediately after the birth of my children, and why I now work for financial independence with our own financial empowerment platform for women with Alex. Money rules the world, but women don't rule yet. So how can we close the gender money gaps that set women back? Alex was founded for this reason, this mission. We want to give women the cards to change this game, to become the queen of your finances and gaps. Before we can close the gaps, we need to understand holistically where they come from in the first place. That's what we're doing here today. We're looking at a women's financial life. We've identified 9 money gaps facing women. Let's go through them, and I warn you, get ready for some really scary numbers. When do you think these gaps begin? At work? With motherhood? In fact, it's much earlier than that. It starts with the gender pocket money gap in childhood. Boys receive on average 20% more pocket money than girls. And look at your own families. We are all biased. Nobody does this on purpose. But when I really took a closer look, I realized that also the Christmas and birthday gifts to my boys were more expensive than the ones of my girl. They were pushing for gaming equipment, drones, technical gadgets, you name it. She was pushing for drawing material. Lumpy cash gifts and less pocket money weaken girls financially from birth. The issue here is not how much more Lego a child can buy, but her future ability to pay. Those who don't learn to manage money early are less confident with finances later on. As a result, money remains a stressful topic for many women throughout their lives. In early adulthood, boys are taught to accumulate wealth. Girls are taught to save. Parents talk about loans and creditworthiness with 61% of boys as early as elementary school age, but only 43% of girls. In addition, fathers are more likely to talk about money with boys and mothers with girls. Fathers do so more entrepreneurially, lustfully, portraying money as means to fulfill dreams. Girls, on the other hand, tend to be urged to be thrifty in a rather anti-pleasure and boring way. Boys thus start life already more financially self-confident. This is important because money habits are formed from the age of 5. Later in working life, men earn on average 20% more than women. Work and still remain poor. Here we have it, gender pay gap. Work and still remain poor. According to the Swiss Department for Statistics, this affects women in particular. Around 2/3 of people who receive a salary of less than 4,000 francs for a full-time job are female. Conversely, top earners who receive more than 16,000 francs a month are 81% men. Let's not forget, women mainly work for free. In more than 70% of families with small children, the housework is mainly done by the woman. Migrant and Black women, as well as transgender women, are particularly hard hit by the pay gap. Those who equalize their genders subsequently earn as much as 32% less as women. But successful women in particular also experience pay inequality. The higher the position, the larger the gap. The industry also plays a role here. In the banking industry, the median salary of women is more than 30% lower than that of men. In the insurance and media sectors, wage inequality is also high. So remember, the highest pay inequality is found among migrant and career women. As a long-time economics and stock market journalist, I was naturally distressed to see how men's investments flourished on average and over long periods, and women were never there at all. The gender wealth gap and gender investment gap have even gotten worse in the pandemic, with men getting richer in the financial markets and women falling out of the labor market at an above average rate. Over 5.1 million women lost their jobs due to the pandemic in the OECD. When it comes to investing, 85% of women say that they don't feel addressed by the financial industry concept, and less than 20% end up buying stocks. So we want to change the industry jargon, go for gender-just design and make investing easy and inspiring for women. Women have to let go this negative bias in their concept of money. Money can do a lot for others and the environment. That's why it is so important for women to invest, particularly because women also tend to invest in a more sustainable and meaningful way. Let's fast forward. I'm skipping a few gaps, otherwise we'll still be here at Christmas, I guess. Guy's partnership gap, Guy's maybe just a little horror number from Switzerland. Again, the Swiss women only had 35 years to deal with money. Before that, they weren't allowed to open an account without their husband's signature. But yes, we wanted to fast forward. Let's see exactly. Stop here for a moment at the founders gap, because this is where the deepest gap between the sexes exists. Only 1% to 2% of the world's venture capital flows into women's companies, into women's ideas. The big money flows don't flow into women. Women's pitches are assessed by risk, men by potential. All these gaps then naturally come together at the bitter end of a woman's financial life, accumulate and lead to the saddest figure of all. Here also a range: 37% in Switzerland, 40% in the EU average, and 56% for example even in the UK. Old age poverty is female. And those were just a few numbers from 5 out of 9 money gaps facing women throughout their life. Research has proven all these gaps accumulate. Therefore, please do it differently. Start with yourself, close your gaps, and then the ones of your sisters, female friends, partners, daughters, granddaughters. Inform yourself gladly also on our platform. Start talking about money, invest, start a business, acquire property. Equality is also a question of money. In fact, money is the last front line of equality. So I urge you all, know the gaps, mind the gaps, and close the gaps. Change the financial world for the better. Become queen of your gaps, of your finances. It was an honor to be your gap filler here.